Imagine for a moment that everything you believed about scarcity, poverty, and limitation has been an illusion, a lie carefully upheld for centuries through fear, conformity, and spiritual disconnection. What if I told you that you were born with a sacred power, that abundance is not a privilege reserved for a chosen few, but your divine inheritance? This is not just a text, it is a calling, an awakening, a profound shaking of the invisible structures that have tried to convince you that you are unworthy, that you cannot, that you must settle. Inspired by the revolutionary teachings of Emmet Fox, this transformative journey will guide you through the eternal principles of spiritual thought, principles that dismantle one by one the myths of poverty. It will reveal truths hidden in plain sight, that your mind is a magnet, your faith a creative tool, and your connection to the divine, the master key that unlocks the gates of prosperity in every form. Prepare to question everything, to ignite an inner flame that cannot be extinguished. Because once you understand the magnitude of your divine right, you will never again settle for less. You are about to remember who you are, and what is rightfully yours, a full, abundant, and free life. Let us begin. A lie inherited for generations, inspired by the teachings of Emmet Fox. From the very first breath of childhood, most men are born beneath a sky of limitation, not because God has declared it so, but because entire generations have built an invisible structure, a shadowy temple where scarcity is worshipped as though it were law. No formal education is needed to believe in poverty. All it takes is to breathe the air of this world and absorb that deep, insidious lie passed down from grandparents to parents, from parents to children, a cursed legacy wrapped in pious words. It is given names like humility, destiny, a cross to bear, and so what was never true becomes custom, and what was never virtue becomes the norm. I have seen good men, honest, devout, faithful, live and die without ever knowing the abundance that was theirs by spiritual right. I speak not of millions in the bank, but of having enough to be free. Free to think, to love, to grow, to serve. For where there is misery, there is fear. And where fear reigns, inner peace cannot bloom, and God cannot fully manifest. How can a man pray with faith when his soul shrinks each time he must look at an empty plate or answer his child? There is none. What can a child learn who, before discovering his spirit, has already learned that the world is lack? In the law of God there is no scarcity. The law of God is fullness, expansion, perfect provision. If we do not see this provision made manifest, it is not because God has failed, but because we have not yet learned to receive. Air is everywhere, but if a man covers his nose, he cannot breathe. The sun shines for all, but if he hides in the basement, he will not see its light. Abundance is like light, constant, impartial, generous. Poverty, in contrast, is a blindfold, an acquired blindness, a curable sickness of the soul. This book is not meant to convince the content nor the greedy. It is not written for those who idolize gold for its own sake, but for the heart that has begun to suspect there must be something more. For the one tired of living a limited life, for the woman who prays with tears for daily bread, for the young person who senses they came to this world not just to survive, but to live fully. This is not about economic theories or get-rich schemes. It is about awakening. It is about pulling out the false root that says you came here to beg, about unraveling the collective lie that says poverty is noble, about lighting a flame in the heart that proclaims, I am a child of God and there is no lack in my kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is not a distant place, it is a state of consciousness. And this book is a map, not to take you somewhere, but to help you remember. Prepare yourself, and it will not be comfortable. Breaking chains never is. But if you are willing, by the end of these pages, you will understand that poverty is not your destiny. It never was. With the authority granted to me by the Spirit of Truth, I declare, poverty is a false belief, not a divine plan. God is not poor. We've noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel haven't subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and giving this video a like. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1, the original sin of the modern world, believing in lack. It is not war that is the true sin of this world, nor is it greed or lust or even hatred. All of those are bitter fruits from the same poisoned tree, whose root hides in a deeper corner of the collective soul. The true sin, the original sin of the modern world and of the ancient one too, is one alone, believing in lack. That belief is the first lie, the first error, the first denial of God that man embraced the moment he felt separated from paradise. Look around you at the empires that were built, the wars that were fought, the laws that were written. Did they not all spring from the idea that there is not enough? Not enough land, not enough gold, not enough love, not enough heaven. That is the great silent heresy that has built entire civilizations on foundations of sand. When Eve reaches for the forbidden fruit, it is not merely out of malice or curiosity, but because a voice whispers that she is missing something. And that voice is not from God. God had already declared his creation to be very good. There was no lack in Eden. Eden was pure abundance. Every tree bore fruit. Every creature coexisted without violence. Every need was already provided for, before it was even felt. But man believed something was missing, and from that moment he began to walk through a desert he himself created in his own mind. For it was not God who cast him out of paradise. It was belief in scarcity that blinded him to the truth. The gates of paradise were never closed. Today, scarcity is revered as a virtue. It is given elegant names: austerity, sacrifice, moderation. But there is a sacred difference between spiritual order and mental poverty. The soul aligned with God lives with simplicity, yes, but not from fear of not having enough, but from the joy of knowing it is free. True abundance is not wastefulness. It is inner security. It is knowing that if something leaves, more will come. That if something breaks, something new will be born. That if something is missing in the visible, it is already complete in the invisible. The modern world is clothed in science and reason, but its root remains deeply superstitious. Does it not fear the future? Does it not run frantically as if tomorrow were a hungry beast about to swallow everything? That is the old worship of the golden calf, in a more sophisticated form. The idols have changed, but not the fear. And religion, our religion, has also often fallen into this same error. A God of lack has been preached, a severe God who only gives to those who suffer enough or who pay with guilt. But that is not the God of truth. The true God is abundance itself, and he doesn't have to decide whether to bless you or not. He already blessed you before you were born. He already said, "Let there be," and you were made. He already decreed, "All that I have is yours." And that remains true, even if you don't know it, even if you don't use it, even if you deny it. I want you to understand this. There is no lack in God. There is no shortage of ideas, no shortage of opportunities, no shortage of resources. When you see lack in your life, what you are witnessing is a distorted reflection of an inner belief. You are seeing on the outside what you have accepted on the inside. The material world is a dirty mirror of the mind that beholds it. This is why the first step to break free from poverty is not to earn more money, or get a different job, or move to another city. It is to recognize this fundamental lie and reject it at the root. It is not about making affirmations like putting on a new hat. It is about a radical shift in mindset, to see that if God is love, and he is, then he cannot be scarce. And if you are made in his image, and you are, then you did not come into this world to beg or merely survive, but to manifest a natural, serene, joyful abundance. And what will happen when you stop believing in lack? The entire world will begin to change, because you will stop being afraid, because your decisions will no longer be born out of urgency, but will rise from peace. Because where you once saw a wall, you will now see a door, because what once seemed little will begin to multiply, like the loaves in the hands of the Master. And you will understand what I have declared from the pulpits of New York to the quiet corners of the soul. Lack is not of God, and lack is a mental error, and every error can be corrected. Reflection for today of, Father, teach me to see you in fullness. Remove from my eyes the veil of scarcity. Help me remember that you are the source of all things, and that as your child I lack nothing. Amen. Chapter 2, God is not poor. The universe is full. The universe is a silent, constant, majestic revelation of the divine nature. It does not speak in words, but in forms, in rhythm, in fullness. And if your soul were open like the sky, you could hear each morning an unmistakable voice that says, God is not poor, the universe is full. Look to the firmament. There is not one star, nor 10, nor 100. There are uncountable billions, more than the human eye can conceive, dancing in perfect order. Each one burns with precise energy, suspended in vastness by a law that never fails. What scarce mind could have created such abundance? What miserly spirit could have dreamed up infinite galaxies? None. Only an inexhaustible source could bring forth a universe so vast, so exact, so fertile. Look at the seas, they are beyond measure. They contain millions of creatures, invisible currents, colors that shift with the sky. They were not made to just suffice. They were made to overflow. The same is true of seeds. A single grain of wheat can yield hundreds of stalks. A mature corn plant gives hundreds of kernels. Do you think life behaves this way by accident? No. Life always gives more than enough because the principle that gave rise to it is overabundance. It does not calculate. Even within the human body, your personal galaxy, everything is generous. Your blood circulates without command. Your lungs fill with air without rationing it. Your cells renew themselves like a river that never dries. Only the mind of man, separated from God, invented the idea that one must earn their bread by the sweat of their brow, as if life were a sentence and not a gift. Scarcity does not come from God, it comes from man's misunderstanding of God. For centuries, a distorted image of divinity has been taught, a watchful, stingy God who only rewards the worthy and punishes those who fail, like a capricious monarch. But that image is merely a projection of human misery. The true God does not need to punish. His nature is to give, and to give abundantly. He is a source, not a judge. He is sunlight, not shadow. And if you were made in his image and likeness, then why do you live as though you were excluded from his abundance? Why are you afraid to ask, afraid to receive, afraid to enjoy? Many people pray, but they do so from fear. They speak to God as if knocking on the doors of a bankrupt bank. That is not prayer. That is superstition. It is not about asking for riches as if demanding a prize. It is about aligning with the nature of the Father, which is full, generous, inexhaustible. It is about no longer resisting the good, because the good is already here. The kingdom has already been given. You do not have to convince God to bless you. He already has. He only waits for you to convince yourself to receive. The flower does not beg the sun. It opens. The river does not argue with the mountain. It flows. Abundance does not come to you through struggle, but through inner harmony with the source. And that source is not up there, nor far away. It is within you. As I said in the previous chapter, paradise was never closed. It only needs you to see it again. And now I want you to ask yourself this question with absolute honesty. What image do I hold of God? Is it a God who is rich, free, radiant, or is it a God who gives in drips and drops? Your entire life will answer to that image. Not what you say you believe, but what you truly believe deep down. If you correct your idea of God, everything else will straighten itself out. Because a God of fullness cannot create children condemned to lack. If the universe is full, and it is, then you as a living part of that universe are also full. Fill yourself with this truth. Allow it to dissolve centuries of fear, resignation, and spiritual complacency. You were not born to survive. You were born to express the overabundance of being. Do not fear abundance. Fear instead the spiritual ignorance that separates you from it. Because poverty is a form of blindness. And this book is, above all, a call to see again. To see the universe as it is and to see God as he is. And to see yourself as his most beloved reflection. Prayer to remember the truth. Eternal Father, my soul recognizes that there is no limit in you. You know no scarcity, no fear, no lack. Let my heart come into harmony with your abundance. Teach me to receive with humility, to give with joy, and to trust that I lack nothing. Because you are within me and you are everything. Chapter 3. Poverty is not humility, it is spiritual ignorance. For centuries, the human soul has been tormented by a subtle deception, cloaked in the appearance of virtue, the belief that poverty is synonymous with humility, with elevated spirituality, with holy renunciation. This is one of the most deeply rooted and dangerous lies that human error has planted in the collective consciousness. Not because poverty itself is a sin, it is not, but because it has been used as a banner of purity by those who have not yet grasped the true nature of God or of the human soul. Authentic humility is a jewel of the spirit. It is the deep acknowledgement that power comes from God, not the ego. It is to walk without pride, to serve without display, to receive without arrogance. But poverty, material lack embraced as a natural or even desirable state, is not humility. It is institutionalized spiritual ignorance, upheld by tradition, by misinterpretation, and by fear. It was not God who declared that the poor are purer than those who have. It was man, wounded by inequality, who constructed that twisted logic to cope with his pain. The Master Jesus never said that poverty in itself was a virtue. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And what does it mean to be poor in spirit? It is to recognize that apart from God, one is nothing. But this does not speak of economic poverty as a value, rather of a soul's attitude, open, receptive, empty of pride, ready to be filled with the divine. And yet, how often have we seen the world venerate lack as if it were an offering to God? How many generous souls have repressed their desires, rejected comfort, and suspected beauty, art, and well-being as traps of the devil? How many times have we heard that to please God, one must renounce bread, shelter, even joy itself? But God does not delight in suffering. He does not need your tears to be glorified. He is not glorified by his children going hungry. A true father does not need to see his child in rags to know he is loved. Suffering does not purify in itself. What purifies is the awareness gained through suffering when it becomes a teacher, not a banner. Yes, there are those who are poor in material things, and yet rich in awareness, rich in peace, in faith, in love. And there are also those rich in goods who live trapped in fear, in guilt, in the idolatry of possession. For neither wealth nor poverty alone are indicators of spiritual evolution. What matters is the consciousness from which you live with or without. But I want you to understand this with absolute clarity. To reject material good in the name of humility is to reject the natural flow of life. God has made every good thing available to you, and if it arrives in the form of health, peace, opportunity, or material provision, you must receive it with gratitude and joy, not with fear or guilt. To say, "I don't deserve this," is to insult the giver. To say, "This is too much for me," is to deny your identity as a child. To say, "Spirituality lies in suffering," is to perpetuate the old martyrdom of minds enslaved by error. I have seen souls shrink from the fear of prospering, people who, on the brink of blessed growth, retreat because something inside them screams that having more, being more, shining more is not spiritual. What a subtle trap, what a painful lie. You did not come into this world to dim your light, but to ignite it and share its warmth with others. If you have more, you can give more. If you rise, you can lift others. If you prosper with awareness, you can bless the world. It is time to break the secret pact we made with scarcity in the name of humility. It is time to rise into true understanding, where humility means knowing that all good comes from God, and therefore must be received with dignity, not rejected in fear. A flower that blooms is not proud. It simply obeys the law of its being. So too, when you prosper with love and purpose, you do not become sanctified. You become more useful. Spiritual ignorance has dressed poverty in robes of holiness, but no more. Today, the light shines again in souls. Today, God calls you to be humble in heart, yes, but abundant in spirit, in word, in deed, and in form. Humanity does not need more voluntary martyrs. It needs awakened children who manifest the fullness of God in every corner of their lives. Because when a soul is freed from the complex of scarcity, it opens the door for others to be freed as well. Prayer to restore spiritual dignity. Lord of all abundance, today I release the false belief that poverty pleases you. I recognize that my soul was created to receive and to share, to rise and to help others rise. Make me humble to know you are the source, but bold to accept the gifts you give me. May I never take pride in suffering, nor feel shame in prospering. May my life be a harmonious reflection of your infinite provision. So be it. Chapter 4. Money is not dirty, it is energy in motion. One of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in the collective consciousness, and one of the most dangerously disguised as virtue, is the idea that money is dirty, corrupt, unworthy of the spiritual soul. This belief has been repeated by both those who despise it and those who covet it, and both extremes stem from the same error, ignorance of the true nature of money. Money is neither good nor bad, neither holy nor impure. It has no morality, no will, no character. Money is a form of condensed energy, and like all energy, it acts according to the intention that directs it. It is a vehicle, a symbol, a channel of exchange. It is like electricity. It can light a lamp or electrocute a person. Electricity is not guilty. It all depends on how it is used. So too is money. The one who says money is dirty has forgotten that with money, the bread that feeds the child is paid for. The book that illuminates the soul is printed. The temple where we pray is built. The artist who reveals beauty is supported. The one who denies the value of money in the name of purity is denying a fundamental part of the divine order of the world. because life also expresses itself in the material, and money is simply the form that a part of exchange between souls has taken. Now, if money is energy and all energy must circulate, what happens when it stagnates? The same thing that happens with water. It rots. The same thing that happens with air. It becomes unbreathable. That's why it is not wise to accumulate out of fear, or to give out of guilt, or to seek out of anxiety. Money, like energy, must flow with harmony and awareness, like love, like talent, like breath itself. Many, when beginning their spiritual journey, feel an inner conflict. Can I desire abundance without betraying my faith? Can I aspire to live in comfort without falling into vanity? And the answer is simple, clear, and eternal. Yes, if you do it with awareness. Yes, if you do it with love. Yes, if you do it knowing that money is not your master, but your servant. The danger is not in money, but in idolizing it, or fearing it. The one who idolizes it loses their soul. The one who fears it loses even their inheritance. But the one who recognizes it as a divine instrument in consecrated hands can work wonders. It can heal, it can educate, it can free. It can sow justice where there was once injustice. It can elevate the human condition where there was once only misery. Don't forget this. Money in conscious hands is an extension of God's love. Now there is an unwritten but unbreakable law in the spiritual world. Money does not come to those who despise it, because what you despise you reject, and what you reject rejects you. This is a mental law. If you believe that money is dirty, if you look at it with disdain, if you consider it unworthy of you, then your subconscious will expel it from your life. You can pray, you can work, but money will flee from you like a mistreated servant. Instead, if you cleanse your mind of this prejudice, if you recognize that money is neither your enemy nor God, but a tool, then your soul opens to the flow of abundance, not out of greed, but by right, not to show off, but to serve better. Because, I repeat, money that flows from the consciousness of humility is blessed. I remember one day in my early years of preaching, a woman approached me after a talk and said, "Mr. Fox, I don't ask for money. I only ask that God give me what's just." And I replied firmly and tenderly, "Then, ma'am, you must know that God is not stingy. And if you ask for what's just, you must accept the abundant. For what's just is not scarce. What's just is complete. What's just includes peace, freedom, security, expansion, and yes, also enough money and more." Whoever prays with the clear consciousness that there is no shame in prospering will begin to see that abundance comes effortlessly, without struggle, without fear, because the universe responds to the open mind, and money, like all forms of good, will come to the soul that receives it with gratitude, manages it with wisdom, and shares it with joy. Prayer to heal your relationship with money. Beloved God, today I release all false beliefs about money. I no longer fear it, I no longer reject it, I no longer worship it. I accept it as your energy set in motion for good. Make me a clean channel so that money flows through me, to serve, to expand, to share, and never to dominate nor be dominated. I surrender my financial consciousness and receive your abundance with gratitude. So be it. Chapter 5. The Fear of Success, the Invisible Prison of the Well-Intentioned. The human being does not fear failure as much as success. This is one of the most hidden and profound truths I have learned on my spiritual journey. And the most painful part is that those who suffer the most from this trap are not the selfish or the wildly ambitious, but the good-hearted souls, the compassionate ones, the noble ones, those who long for peace for all, but who inside have chained themselves with invisible threads to the fear of shining too brightly. The fear of success does not shout. It is not easily recognized. It disguises itself as prudence, modesty, discretion. It hides behind phrases that seem sensible. I don't want to attract attention. It's not the time yet. I don't feel prepared. But beneath those soft words, there hides a silent monster. The belief that succeeding will separate me from others, expose me to judgment, make me unworthy of love, or worse, take me away from God. I have seen many enlightened souls sabotage their own blessings. People who were approaching prosperity, a new opportunity, a loving relationship, an expansion of their calling, and at the last moment, something inside them would pull the brake. Something that did not come from reason but from the subconscious. Something that told them, "Who are you to achieve this? If you do, others will envy you. Don't be proud." Your place is with those who suffer, not with those who triumph. That voice is not from the soul. That voice is the echo of a distorted education, a misunderstood religion, a world that has glorified defeat as if it were synonymous with virtue. But I want to tell you clearly, firmly, and with love, success is not betrayal. True success is the fulfillment of the divine plan. I will repeat this until it is etched in your cells. Your success does not harm anyone. Your well-lived success is a blessing to the world. Now, what is success? Do not confuse it with fame or material wealth. Real success is the full expression of what God has placed inside you. It is living in harmony with your vocation, giving your best, without fear, without disguise, without hiding your light. It is being useful, fruitful, radiant. It is fulfilling your role in the great body of life with joy. And if this is so, why do you fear it? Because pure success forces you to acknowledge your greatness. You can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer blame fate, circumstances, or lack of luck. Success demands presence, responsibility, faith, and it demands you to say, "Yes, Lord, here I am. Send me." And for many, that is more terrifying than failure. There are those who feel more comfortable among ruins, not because they like to suffer, but because they have made suffering their identity. They have been the strong ones, the ones who endure, the ones who survive, and to shine feels like a betrayal to that loyalty. But they have not understood that sustained suffering is not loyalty to God. It is loyalty to error. Being well-intentioned is not enough if your intention is wrapped in fear. You must be brave to receive the good, because good is not imposed, it is offered. And if you do not accept it, it does not disappear, but it is postponed. And life waits. It waits for your yes. It waits for your decision. It waits for you to believe that you have permission to prosper. And I tell you this with all my heart, you have permission. You have permission to shine, to be happy, to succeed, to fulfill your purpose, to prosper without guilt, to inspire without apology. Your success is not ego. Your ego is the one that tells you that you should not succeed, so that you never awaken to the power that already resides within you. Your ego wants you to remain small, invisible, but the soul knows that it came to spread its wings, and when it does, it blesses all. False humility resists success. True humility receives it with gratitude, manages it with wisdom, shares it with joy. The wise soul does not fear having more because it knows that its abundance is multiplied service. So, awaken. Face your fear of success and look at it with tenderness, like one looks at a frightened child, and say, "Thank you for protecting me, but I no longer need you. I am ready for what God has prepared for me because it is already ready. Only you are missing." Prayer to release the fear of shining. Beloved Creator, I have believed for a long time that it was nobler to hide than to manifest your glory. I have feared the light, confusing success with pride. Today, I leave behind that error. Today, I recognize that my success is the expression of your will. Grant me the faith to expand without fear, the wisdom to shine without pride, and the humility to know that all good comes from you. I declare that I am ready, and I accept. Chapter 6. The mental idols that feed scarcity. True idolatry is not about bowing down before stone statues or golden images. That is an external, visible form, often harmless. The most dangerous, subtle, and destructive idolatry occurs in the secret sanctuary of the mind, where misguided ideas are worshipped as if they were absolute truths. These are invisible idols, but they are powerful. They have no shape, yet they mold your life. You cannot see them, but they govern your decisions, your emotions, your finances. In the realm of scarcity, this mental idolatry is devastating. The soul that lives in limitation is not always so because of a lack of opportunities or external injustices. Often, it is because of an unconscious loyalty to certain mental idols that prevent good from flowing freely. These idols are not outside of you, they are within you. And until they are torn down, abundance will remain trapped at the doorstep of your life, waiting for the door to open. What are these idols? The first is the idol of worthiness. This belief whispers that you are not worthy of prosperity, that you have made mistakes, that others need it more, that if God wanted to give it to you, he would have done so by now. This idol feeds on guilt, and guilt is a wall. As long as you believe you must first stop something before receiving, you will cancel in your soul the possibility of receiving now. God does not ask for redemption for your abundance. He has given it freely. You only need to accept it. The second idol is the idol of sacrifice. This says, nothing worth having comes without pain. And so, when something good comes to you easily, you reject it or push it away, because it can't be that simple. But the truth is that grace operates without effort, without struggle, without violence. The flower blooms without pushing. The sun shines without anguish. True good does not hurt. It flows. You are not here to suffer your way to fulfillment, but to allow the Spirit to bring it through you. The third idol is the idol of comparison. It says, if I have more, someone else will have less. This idea, born from a limited vision of the universe, has sown guilt in countless generous hearts. But God does not distribute scarce goods. There is not a limited number of blessings. Good is infinite, and when you prosper spiritually, you do not take anything from anyone. You give them an example, you give them permission, you give them faith. The fourth idol is the idol of punishment. This says that if things go well for you, something bad is bound to come, that joy breeds envy, that abundance brings punishment, that it's better to go unnoticed. And where does this superstition come from? From an education based on fear, not on truth. But remember, the universe responds to consciousness, not to arbitrary punishments. If your consciousness is one of peace, peace will follow you. If your consciousness is one of harmony, harmony will manifest. Do not live expecting something bad to interrupt your joy. Live expecting more good. And perhaps the subtlest of them all, the idol of self-imposed duty. This idol says, I must help everyone before thinking of myself. But you cannot give from emptiness. You cannot illuminate if you don't have fire. You cannot uplift if you are sinking yourself. The true spiritual servant receives first, so they can give later. The false nobility of those who eternally sacrifice themselves turns into hidden bitterness over time. But the joy of those who live in their fullness becomes a blessing to many. These idols and others you may recognize in yourself are not destroyed through violence, but through light. The light of truth, the light of the inner Christ, the light of focused, positive, firm thought. Do not blame yourself for having held on to them. We have all worshipped them at one point. What matters is not having believed in them, but stopping now. Because while even one of these idols governs your mind, scarcity will find a home there. But when the inner temple is cleansed of lies, the divine presence will enter with its infinite flow, making all things new. Tear down the idols, and the kingdom will manifest. Prayer to tear down mental idols. Beloved God, today I recognize that I have held false ideas about you, about myself, and about good. I have worshipped fear, guilt, limitation, believing them to be wisdom, but no more. I tear down with your light every mental idol that feeds scarcity in my life. I declare my inner temple clean, open, and ready to receive your abundance. Let only you reign in my consciousness, and may my life reflect your truth. Amen. Chapter 7, Pure Mentalism. Nothing enters your life without your permission. At the heart of every true spiritual teaching lies an absolute, simple, immutable law that does not change with the centuries or with human fashions. Thought is creative. It is not a philosophical ornament, not a moral suggestion. It is a law as real as gravity, as precise as the light of the sun. And this law declares that everything that appears in your life, without exception, is the result of an internal mental cause, consciously or unconsciously accepted by you. This principle is what I call pure mentalism. It is the recognition that you live in a spiritual universe governed by the mind, and that your external world is nothing but a faithful reflection of your inner world. Not a punishment, not an accident, not a test, but a natural expression of the content of your consciousness. When this truth is understood, not with the lips but with the soul, everything changes, because the game of guilt, victimhood, and complaint ends. You can no longer say, "This happened to me." You begin to say, "I attracted this," and though this declaration may hurt at first, it soon becomes liberating. Because if you attracted it, you can also stop attracting it. If you allowed it, you can also revoke that permission. And if you created it, you can also create something new. I'm not saying that you are to blame for every difficult circumstance you face. Blame has no place in this teaching. I'm saying something deeper, that at some level of your being, you have believed in what you now live. You have harbored an idea, a fear, an image, an expectation, and that has taken form. Remember, nothing enters your life without your permission. If there is scarcity, it is because in some corner of your mind, you hold the idea that scarcity is possible or even deserved. If there is loneliness, it is because at some point you accepted the idea that you are unworthy of deep companionship, or that no one can truly understand you. If there is illness, it is because a belief, sometimes inherited, sometimes personal, has declared that your body is fragile, that you are exposed, that the physical is an enemy of the spirit. All of this can change, but nothing will change while you continue believing that you are a victim of chance, destiny, or the will of others. You are not. You are a creative consciousness. You are the living extension of divine thought. You are the exact point where God expresses himself, not as a distant power, but as you. The Master Jesus did not heal people by imposing his force. He healed because they believed. Your faith has healed you, he said. What faith? The faith that something different was possible. The faith that a new mental image could replace the old. The faith that good was available here and now. Faith is a mental act, and everything you allow you do through thought. To think is to pray. To think is to create. To think is to permit. And that is why the cleansing of your thoughts is the most urgent spiritual act. Do you want a different life? Start by allowing different thoughts. Do you want abundance? Permit the image of fullness in your mind. Hold it. Believe in it. Walk with it. Want health, peace, opportunities. Stop thinking like someone who begs. Think like someone who inherits, because that is what you are, an heir of the kingdom. Pure mentalism does not contradict itself. There are no exceptions to its law. What you hold in your mind, you will see reflected in your life. That is why it is not just important to think positively from time to time. It is vital to train your consciousness as one would cultivate a sacred garden, because every thought you allow in, whether from habit, fear, or emotion, is a seed, and every seed bears fruit. Nothing comes to you by force, everything comes by resonance, and if you don't like something, change the internal melody. Change the idea, change the expectation, and the world will change as well, not because you force it, but because everything external adjusts to the image you hold inside. This is the great secret of all the wise. This is the power of Christ in action in your mind. This is the eternal principle. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Prayer to assume your mental power. Father of light, today I stop giving away my power. I recognize that I am a creative consciousness and that my world reflects what I allow myself to think, believe, and feel. With your help, I undo all false images, all expectations of harm, all permission granted to scarcity. From today onward, I only allow thoughts of peace, ideas of fullness, and visions of good. I declare my mind free and my life new. Amen. Chapter 8. Abundance and Prayer. How is good materialized? When you truly understand what prayer really is, the artificial separation between the spiritual and the material dissolves forever. Prayer is not a ritual, nor a plea, nor a list of urgent needs directed to a distant God. Prayer, in its highest sense, is a creative act. It is the most direct way to bring the invisible into the visible, the potential into the actual, the divine into the human. Every good that comes into your life, every restored health, every peace achieved, every opportunity opened, every legitimate money received has been preceded by a prayer, even if you didn't always know it. It may have been a silent yearning, a sigh of the soul, a persistent image in your mind, an affirmation, a declaration, a thought sustained with faith. That is prayer. Prayer is the matrix of good. It is the way the soul tells the universe, I am ready to receive. Many believe that praying for abundance is selfish. Others think it is not right to trouble God with matters of money, work, home, or provision. But this idea comes from a limited concept of divinity. The true God does not separate the sacred from the everyday. To him, all is one. Your need is legitimate. Your desire for expansion is part of the plan. Your well-being is an expression of his glory. Asking with faith is not troubling him, it is manifesting. Effective prayer is not a fearful plea, but a declaration of faith. It is not a disguised complaint, but an affirmation of truth. It does not say, Lord, give me what I lack, but rather, Lord, thank you because it is already given, and I now open my consciousness to receive it. Because in the spiritual realm, everything you need has already been created. Abundance is ready, provision is available, and the opportunity has already been thought of for you. What remains is your mental and spiritual acceptance. How is good materialized through prayer? First, you must know what you want, but not with anxiety or desperation. You must define the good with clarity, but without attachment. You don't say, "I want so much money," you say, "I now accept the perfect provision for my need." You don't say, "I want this business to work," you say, "I declare my consciousness open to divinely ordered success." The difference may seem subtle, but it is immense because the first comes from fear while the second comes from faith. Next, you must eliminate contrary thoughts. It's not enough to affirm good in the morning if you spend the rest of the day thinking in scarcity. Prayer is like planting a seed. If you dig it up every day to check if it's growing, you kill it. If you affirm that you trust in divine provision, but at the same time say, "This never changes, nothing gets better," you are destroying with one hand what you built with the other. Prayer requires internal coherence. Third, you must act in harmony with your prayer. If you prayed for abundance, then walk as one who has already been provided for. Speak with gratitude, decide with wisdom, expect the best. The universe does not respond only to your words, but to the total vibration of your being. If your prayer says yes, but your attitude says no, good remains in the waiting room. And finally, you must give thanks. Gratitude is the seal of prayer fulfilled. It's not about waiting to see to give thanks. It's about giving thanks so that you can see. The soul that thanks before receiving is already receiving, because it has taken possession in the highest plane, and what is accepted there is manifested on earth. Is this a magic formula? No, it is a spiritual law. It works for everyone at all times, without exception. What varies is the degree of faith, consistency, and depth. But the law is unchanging. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. Not when God wills, but when you believe. Abundance and prayer are inseparable. There is no true abundance without the consciousness of God, and there is no true prayer that does not bring some good. Because prayer is aligning your mind with the source, and when you align, the river flows, the doors open, scarcity disappears like mist before the sun. Because you are no longer pushing, you are allowing. To pray is to allow God to be God in you, and when that happens, everything you need comes without fail, and in its due time. Prayer to open the door to good. Loving Father, I know that I lack nothing because you are everything. Today I pray not to beg, but to open myself to you. I declare that all abundance has already been given, and now my soul accepts it with joy. Remove from me all doubt, all anxiety, all thoughts of lack. Make me an instrument of good, a clear channel through which your provision flows. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. Chapter 9. Work and the law, serving is not sacrificing. One of the greatest spiritual confusions of our era is the association between service and sacrifice. It has been taught, with good intentions but with terrible error, that anyone who wishes to live in harmony with God must deny themselves, wear themselves out, surrender without reservation, until they become invisible and exhausted. This idea has harmed many noble souls who have confused the call to service with an invitation to martyrdom. But the eternal and liberating truth is that serving is not sacrificing. Serving, in its purest sense, is cooperating with the divine law of expansion. Work, true work, is not a punishment. It is an expression of life. The entire universe works without complaint. The sun rises tirelessly. The rivers flow without fatigue. The bees build their hive. The stars maintain their orbits. The entire creation works in order and harmony. Only man has turned work into a burden because he has worked from fear, not from inspiration. When Adam falls in the biblical story, the first thing that happens is that he is imposed with work through sweat and effort. "By the sweat of your brow you will eat bread," says the misunderstood sentence. But this is not a divine decree, it is a natural consequence of having separated from the source. He who works disconnected from God does so with struggle. He who works in God does so with joy. Work is not suffering. Work is serving the good through the talents that God has placed in you. The problem is not work. The problem is the consciousness from which you work. If you work out of fear of loss, out of guilt, blind obligation, desire for approval, greed, or relentless self-demand, then you empty yourself. But if you work with love, with faith, with enthusiasm, knowing that your work is a way of praying with your hands, then you fill yourself, strengthen yourself, expand yourself. And I'm not just talking about paid work. I'm also talking about invisible, silent work. Mothers who raise, friends who listen, those who plant ideas, care for the sick, clean houses, teach the ignorant, support those who falter. That work, although the world does not pay for it, God does because it is true service. Now many sacrifice themselves believing that sacrifice itself has value. They give without taking care of themselves. They give without wisdom. They carry more than they should, and then feel they have done the right thing because they are overwhelmed. But God does not need your broken bones. He needs your light to be shining. You are not here to burn yourself out for the world, but to illuminate it from your center. Sacrifice, in its etymological root, means to make sacred, but that does not mean to suffer. It means to elevate the ordinary to the divine plane. When you work with joy, when you serve with balance, when you give the best without losing yourself, you are making your day sacred. It is not the effort that sanctifies, it is the consciousness with which everything is done. Serving with joy is the highest form of success because it aligns you with the law. And the eternal, perfect, inviolable law says that everything you give with love returns multiplied. He who sows generously reaps abundantly, not as a trade but as a principle. He who serves from the soul never remains empty. Money, opportunity, recognition, these things naturally come to those who work as an expression of their faith. There is no need to struggle. You must vibrate in harmony with the law, and the law honors sincere, balanced, fruitful work. The law does not reward the one who exhausts themselves. It rewards the one who creates, the one who builds, the one who serves with joy and wisdom. Always remember, serving is not disappearing. Serving is not leaving yourself behind. Serving is not breaking yourself to hold others up. Serving is flourishing so that others may remember they can also flourish. And that, my friend, is not sacrifice, it is power in motion. Prayer to work with love and freedom. Lord of all life, you who work tirelessly in every star, make my work an expression of my soul, not a burden, not a penance, but a dance with you. Cleanse my mind from the old error of sacrifice and replace it with the wisdom of joyful service. Make me useful without losing myself. Make me generous without exhausting me. Make me fruitful without emptying me. May everything I do be prayer in action. Amen. Chapter 10. The spiritual tithe is not giving, it is liberating the source. The tithe, that ancient practice that has crossed religions, centuries and cultures, has been misunderstood, poorly taught, and therefore poorly lived. Many see it as a burden, a moral obligation, a toll paid to God or his visible representative. Others consider it an obsolete superstition, a manipulation by human institutions. But today, I want to speak not of the tithe of coins, but of the true spiritual tithe, which is not an external act of giving but an internal act of liberating. The spiritual tithe is not a transaction, it is a statement of living faith. It is not about giving a mechanical percentage of what you have to appease God, but about recognizing in your soul that God is the source, and that source never runs dry. The true tithe is not measured with a calculator. It is measured by the willingness to release the fear of losing. It is measured by the joy with which you let go of what you no longer need to make way for what is to come. Some people give in fear, hoping that they will receive more in return. Others give nothing for fear of losing the little they have. In both cases, the problem is the same. They believe that good is limited. One gives to gain, the other does not give for fear of losing, but both are anchored in a vision of scarcity. Only he who gives from inner freedom, without calculation, without anxiety, without superstition, knows the real power of the tithe, the power to unlock the source of good. What does this mean? Imagine that your soul is a spring. If you close it out of fear, the water does not flow, but it does not enter either. If you give grudgingly, the water flows in drops. But if you open the gate with faith, with gratitude, with joy, even if it's a small gesture, then the spring flows. And not only does it flow outward, it also renews itself inside. Because the law is this: what you give with awareness returns multiplied, not as a reward but as a vibrational echo. The spiritual tithe is not just money, it is also time, attention, gratitude, creativity, energy. Every time you give with love, without expecting a return, you are tithing your ego, you are releasing your fear, you are declaring to the universe, I know the source is alive, I know I lack nothing, I know I can release. And then the source responds. The soul that tithes spiritually becomes certain because it no longer fears, because it no longer clings, because it no longer hoards or holds back, because it knows that everything that belongs to it by divine right cannot be lost. A woman once told me, "Mr. Fox, I have nothing to give." I replied, "Then start by tithing a word of encouragement each day, a prayer for someone in need, a sincere smile where there is sadness, and you will see that soon you will have more, because the soul that gives expands, and the soul that expands attracts abundance by law." There is no more powerful tithe than lived gratitude. When you thank, you tithe your judgment, your bitterness, your sense of debt to life. When you thank, you declare that the good is already here. And that declaration creates a current of visible and invisible goods, because the source is never exhausted, it only waits to be liberated. So do not think of the tithe as loss. Think of it as a key, not as an obligation, but as access, not as detachment, but as power. And do not fear. When you give from the consciousness of love, the universe rearranges itself in your favor, because whoever dares to release is already demonstrating that they have understood the essential truth. The good does not come from what you have, it comes from what you release with faith. Prayer to liberate the inner source. Eternal God, you who are my source and my sustenance, today I release the fear of giving. Today I liberate all that I have held back out of fear. Today I give what I have and what I am, not as sacrifice but as an expression of my faith. I declare that I lack nothing, and because of that I share with joy that good may flow through me like a clear river, like a channel of your infinite provision. So it is, and so it will be. Chapter 11. The riches of the soul, signs of the true wealth. There are people who walk the world with empty souls and pockets full. There are others who possess a wealth that cannot be counted, weighed, or stored in vaults, and yet the world, ignorant of eternal truths, calls them poor. The mistake of our time, as of so many before it, is having confused appearance with substance, having with being, accumulation with fullness. But I tell you with all the authority of the Spirit, the true riches are those of the soul, and they are the ones that ultimately determine the true wealth of your existence. What good is it to have a house if you do not inhabit it with peace? What good is a fortune that cannot buy even a minute of genuine joy? What good is external abundance if inside there is fear, anxiety, and dissatisfaction? There are men who possess the entire world, and yet live as beggars of the soul. They fear losing. They fear not having enough. They fear not being loved for who they are, but for what they possess. And that hidden, persistent, unconfessed fear is the sign of a deep poverty, even though they wear fine clothes and sign generous checks. In contrast, truly rich souls radiate without boasting. Where they step, they sow trust. Where they speak, they convey calm. Where they serve, they uplift. They do not need to say they are abundant. Their mere presence declares it. Because the wealth of the soul is not demonstrated with words but with vibration. And that vibration cannot be faked. So what are the signs of a rich soul? The first is inner peace, not the calm that depends on circumstances, but the serenity that remains even when the world shakes. The peace of the rich soul is not passivity, it is certainty. Certainty that there is a higher order, certainty that nothing real is lost, certainty that good is always at work even when it is not seen. The second sign is joy without cause, not the loud laughter of the one who escapes, but the soft happiness of the one who trusts. The rich soul does not need everything to be perfect to smile. It smiles because it knows that the perfect is invisible. It smiles because its joy is not a reaction, but an expression of its communion with God. The third is natural generosity, not the kind that seeks recognition, but the kind that springs forth like water from a spring. The rich soul gives without becoming impoverished. It gives because it does not fear running out. It gives because it knows that giving is multiplying. It gives because it has learned that what is held with fear rots, but what is shared with love becomes eternal. The fourth is lucid compassion, not the pity that humiliates, but the deep understanding of unity. The rich soul does not judge the one who falls. It does not believe itself superior for standing. It looks at the other and sees a part of itself, a reflection, a sibling, and extends a hand not from above, but from the same level, knowing that we are all returning home. The fifth is silent wisdom, not the kind that accumulates information, but the kind that understands without words. The rich soul intuits, discerns, chooses calmly. It does not react in haste, does not rush, does not agitate. It knows that the universe has a rhythm and the wisdom of God is revealed to those who know how to wait without fear. These are the true riches, and whoever possesses them will, sooner or later, see reflected in their outer world the forms of abundance, not as an end, but as a consequence, because visible good always follows invisible good, and the physical world, when it encounters a clear, stable, and elevated consciousness, can do nothing but obey it. Do not worry then if you do not yet see gold in your hands. Focus on ensuring there is gold in your thoughts, in your feelings, in your speech. Do not anguish over the time it takes for the harvest. Make sure you are planting the right seed: faith, gratitude, understanding, joy, service, and when manifestation comes, for it will, you will know that it is not a miracle nor a reward, but a reflection, and that will be your greatest freedom, knowing that the external comes and goes, but what the soul has conquered is never lost. Prayer to recognize your inner richness. Father of all light, teach me to see my true riches. May I value peace more than appearance, joy more than applause, wisdom more than noise. Make me rich in soul, abundant in love, fertile in thoughts of good, and if outer abundance comes into my hands, may it never pull me away from you, but bring me closer to all, for I only want to be a channel of your eternal wealth. Amen. Chapter 12. Your divine inheritance. Claim without guilt, receive without fear. There is a truth that burns in the Scriptures, that resonates in every pure spiritual teaching, and yet it has been ignored by entire generations. You have a divine inheritance. It is not a metaphor, it is not a poetic figure, it is a living, concrete, active reality. You have been created as a son, not as a servant, as an heir, not as a beggar. But that inheritance, like all spiritual blessings, is not imposed. It must be claimed, accepted, and received, and here is where thousands of souls stumble. Because although they pray, although they work, although they seek deep down, they do not feel worthy of receiving. They have been raised in a culture of scarcity, of misunderstood modesty, of sanctified resignation. They believe God is good, yes, but for others. They believe abundance is possible, yes, but for those who have suffered more. They believe life can be beautiful, but they tell themselves, I did not come for that. And that silent, invisible, unconscious belief blocks the channel. It is as if someone inherited a house but did not dare to enter for fear of dirtying the floor. They stay at the door, peering through the crack, speaking of the beauty it could have, but not daring to say, it is mine, it belongs to me by right. And so lives the soul that has not understood its divine filiation. It lives at the gates of the kingdom but does not enter. You are not here to beg for alms from heaven. You are here to claim with love what has already been decreed for you from before time. And that claim is not arrogance, it is obedience. For God does not delight in seeing you small, limited, guilty, or afraid. God does not receive glory from your fear. God is glorified in your awakening, in your expansion, in your joy. Did the father of the prodigal son ask why he returned so soon? Did he condemn him? No. He ran to meet him, clothed him, fed him, and declared with joy, all that is mine is yours. Luke 3:31. That is your inheritance, not because you deserve it through works, but because it is your birthright. And the spiritual inheritance manifests in all forms of good: mental peace, lasting health, harmonious relationships, opportunities, resources, ideas, beauty, purpose. Everything that contributes to your fulfillment is part of the inheritance God has prepared for you. But you must claim it without guilt, for guilt cuts the thread. Guilt says, I am not enough. Guilt says, I will settle for the minimum. But God does not give reluctantly, does not hand out crumbs. He gives in fullness like the sun that does not measure its rays. If you do not receive, it is not because God does not give. It is because your mind is still shaped by the logic of punishment, not by the law of filiation. You must also receive without fear. Some feel guilty when receiving something good, as if it was stolen, undeserved, as if it would cost them dearly. But that is superstition, not spirituality. Nothing good that comes from God can harm you. Good is not charged. Good does not condemn. Good does not ask for something in return. Good expands you. And if, upon receiving something, you feel fear, do not reject the gift. Reject the false idea that clouds your consciousness. Receiving is an act of faith, but also of humility, because to receive, you must accept that it is not you who produces the good, but God in you. Receiving without fear is saying, I trust in your provision. I speak to the flow. I declare myself worthy because you have created me this way. That is the prayer that moves mountains. That is the attitude that opens doors. That is the vibration that transforms the world. Your inheritance does not depend on human effort. It depends on your spiritual awakening. And when you awaken, you no longer doubt, you no longer beg, you no longer justify your blessings. You simply live them, share them, multiply them because you know they do not run out. You know they are not yours to own but to keep safe. And you know that the more you receive with gratitude, the more you give with joy. So yes, claim without guilt and receive without fear, for it is already given. Only you are missing. Prayer to receive your divine inheritance. Loving Father, today I recognize that I am your child, and as such, I claim my heavenly inheritance without guilt. I no longer judge myself as unworthy. I no longer limit myself with false ideas. I no longer hide from your abundance. I open my soul to good, I receive in peace, I share with joy, and I live knowing that all that is yours is also mine. Amen. Chapter 13. The new world begins in your consciousness. Many are waiting for a change, a global turn, a new era. They dream of a world without hunger, without war, without hatred, without inequality. They cry out for justice, for harmony, for a renewed humanity, but they do so by looking outward, as if the world was something foreign, distant, ruled by wills they do not understand. They wait for governments to change, for the powerful to yield, for destiny to act, and in the meantime they continue to dwell in the old world within their own consciousness. But I tell you with the clear voice of the Spirit, the new world will not come from the outside. The new world begins and can only begin in your consciousness. There is no external renewal without internal transformation, because the world you see, the one you live in, the one you touch, the one you suffer or enjoy, is a projection of your state of consciousness. You are not a spectator of history. You are a silent creator, and every thought you hold, every emotion you repeat, every expectation you feed is shaping the world around you. Do not expect abundance to manifest on the planet if you still vibrate in fear, in complaint, in doubt. Do not ask for peace if your soul is armed. Do not demand justice if inside you judge without mercy. Do not curse the darkness if you are not willing to be the light. Everything you see out there is a mirror. It is not punishment or chance. It is a mirror. And what you do not like should not first outrage you, but awaken you. For real change is not decreed by words or votes. It is established in the mind, confirmed in the heart, manifested in life. A new world needs new men and women, not in form but in consciousness. Human beings who no longer live as victims, but as heirs, who no longer define themselves by their past, but by their purpose, who no longer fight over ideas but embody the truth. It does not matter your age, your history, your position. If you awaken, even if no one else does, the world will have already changed. And how does that change begin? It begins when you decide not to think as you did before, when you stop feeding the same fears, the same excuses, the same complaints that have accompanied you like old travel companions. It begins when you rise in the morning, not to resist the day, but to create from within a new dawn. It begins when you understand that you do not need external permission to prosper, nor social approval to be happy, nor ideal circumstances to live in peace. All of that is already available in your consciousness. You are just waiting to be recognized. Wait for yourself to say, I am now an active part of this new world, and my first field of transformation is myself. Because the world does not change with celestial decrees, it changes with human decisions inspired by the soul. Do you want to see less poverty? Heal your idea of scarcity. Do you want to see more unity? Eliminate all feelings of separation within yourself. Do you want to see more beauty? Speak with love, think with gratitude, look with new eyes. The kingdom of heaven, the Master said, will not come with warnings. It is already among you. Luke 5:21. The new world is not a distant utopia. It is a reality that is revealed every time a soul consciously chooses to live as if God were real, because He is. Every one of your acts is a seed. Every word is a brick. Every thought is a foundation. Sow with faith, build with truth, think with love. And if you ever doubt that all of this can change something, remember, a single candle dispels the darkness of a cave. The new world begins in you, and through you, it will expand. Prayer to be a creator of a new world. Lord of the visible and the invisible, today I recognize that the world I see is born from my consciousness. I no longer excuse myself with the outside world. I no longer wait for miracles without participating in them. I declare that my mind is fertile ground for your kingdom. I think as one who believes, I speak as one who loves. I act as one who remembers that you are in all things. Make me an open door for the new world, and where I am, may the light manifest. Amen.